About 2 years ago, we had a hit in America with this song off an album called Abandoned Luncheonette, and it's called She's Gone.
Everybody's high on consolation. Everybody's trying to tell me what is right for me. Yeah, my daddy tried to bore me with a sermon. You know it's plain to see they can't comfort me. Sorry, Charlie, for the imposition, but I believe I've got the strength to carry on. I need a drink and a quick decision. You know it's up to me. Ooh, what will be? And she's gone. I better learn how to face. She's gone and she's gone. I paid the devil to replace her. She's gone. What went wrong? Up in the morning, look in the mirror. Look in the mirror. I'm on as a toothbrush hanging in the stand. It's in the stand. In the stand. My face ain't looking any younger. Now I can see love taking her toll on me. And she's gone. She's gone. I better learn how to face. She's gone and she's gone. I pay the devil to replace her. She's gone. What went eternity in the city. Let the carbon and monoxide choke my thoughts away. Pretty bodies help dissolve our memories. They might help her. They could never be what she was to me. And she's gone. I better learn how to face. She's gone and she's gone. I pay the devil to replace her. She's gone. What went wrong? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Welcome back to the Professor Penn podcast. Good evening to you on Thursday, this November 21st, 2024. Episode number 160. We're going to talk about lawyers tonight. Interesting topic, something I know quite a bit about. Glad to be with you. I got a little sleep last night. I'm a little bit better than I was on Tuesday. Tell you a funny story. I got these logins at my bank, and I had to get in the bank yesterday. And, I use this login every day, sometimes 3, 4 times a day. I've been so wrought in the spirit about what's happening in Europe that I couldn't remember my login. I knew it was because I hadn't gotten any sleep for a couple of nights. Sleep and memory are related, and more so as you get older. But I could remember it this morning, so praise God for that. Uh, Morning, Tanner. How you doing?
Morning, David. I'm doing good.
We're here. We're kind of excited. Our podcasts are growing. They're growing because of you, our audience. And I want to thank, for example, Kathleen, who I noticed on Getter was reposting links to the podcasts, and that grows the engagement. And when you're money constrained like we are, uh, your efforts to repost and to speak to your friends and bring people to Free People Radio, expose them to Please Call Me Crazy and Hebrews and the Professor Penn podcast. They're so helpful for us because we do want to expand this, media. And I think what we're doing is good. I'm trying to get better and better at what I'm doing. Uh, Tanner is working with me more and more. We've got a good collaboration going here. We're trying to up our production. And, the hardest thing is to ask for your support because some of the viewers and listeners have listened to 160 podcasts. When I have somebody, hit my social media and say, I've listened to every podcast, I'm just like, wow, that is so cool. And I appreciate it so much. And for those of you that have listened to a lot of podcasts, I'm actually reticent about asking for help. It's funny because I watch Alex Jones sometimes, and he's completely unabashed about it. He'll say, the world's coming to an end, but please buy my vitamins, which I think is just a phenomenal. He's so good at it. It's like he takes you to the edge of your seat, and then he says, hey, the world depends on us staying on air. Could you please send us some money? He's great at it, and I haven't developed, that kind of panache around those issues. But as I sit here and struggle with making all this work, and I do believe, I'm following the path, I'm following the way. And if I fail financially on this way, I mean, if we go off, if we don't succeed, I tried. And there's a certain amount of entrepreneurship that you're watching go on here at Free People Radio. And entrepreneurs take risks and they live with anxiety, can't sleep at night, and you got to go for it. I mean, if and any of you out there that are contemplating, or perhaps you own your own business, if you own your own business, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you're contemplating it, I can only say that with an impending Trump administration coming along here, it'll probably be easier to go into business and make money because he's a businessman and he views, he sees it as very important that we have a healthy and functioning economy here in the country. He's not looking to suppress entrepreneurship. He's looking to enhance it. So if you're contemplating getting into business, I think that's great. And I would help anybody that would come to me and uh, talk about getting into business because, we're a nation of shopkeepers. The way this country was framed and founded, the framers knew that a lot of people are going to be employees. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't look down on it, but the framers knew that there would be certain people that were going to be bold and go out there and want to cut their own rug, chart their own course. And they set up a framework that supported that. It's called freedom. It's called self-determination, self-governance. In our country, it's enhanced and not suppressed. Of course, on the Democratic side, they don't like that. The Democrat, yeah, I notice this when I go back, and I don't make a big deal about this, but you go back to your high school reunion. Now, I graduated from high school in the mid 70s. And a lot of people have died. What happened to Bill? Oh, he died. What did he die of? Well, who cares? He's dead. And, you sit there and go, you talk about Bill. And then, so what do you do? What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? What am I doing? Well, I own my own business. Well, there aren't that many of us. And, well, economic self determination is not part of the Democrat platform. No, if you want to own a barber shop, they're okay with that. And if you own a barber shop or some kind of salon, more power to you. That's brilliant. But they're not okay with guys like me opening up media companies or operating, large businesses that compete with their favored industrial champions. They don't like that. They don't want any downward pressure on prices. They don't want any competition for customer service. They don't want anybody being creative that they cannot control. Because socialism is the abrogation of creativity. Socialism is the management of risk. So everybody has equitable outcomes. Everybody has to be the same. So if somebody wants to stand out, do their own thing, that creates a kind of tension that lawyers and the administrative state and the bureaucracy manage for our society. We're going to talk about that tonight. And there I go, almost forgetting what my purpose here is in this preamble. We're coming up on Christmas. We have a store. It's freepeopleradio.com. It's the store. You can go there. It's not great. I mean, I'm not saying we're, Amazon, but there are some knickknacks there. And like, for example, coffee cups, T-shirts, things that you're going to buy anyhow. And, if you're going to go down to the big box store and buy some T-shirts to give to some of your nephews, cousins, friends, please come to Free People. We need the support and we appreciate this. But coffee mugs, come on, coffee mugs. Everybody's buying. It's a great Christmas gift. And everybody's about to spend, not everybody, but everybody's about, not everybody, cognitive distortion, but many of us are going. Tanner, are you going to spend some money on Christmas?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. What do you mean by that? Like, I'm
A
not
little,
gonna not a buttload of money. No,
but well, I don't have it either, but
Yeah.
you're going to spend something,
Oh yeah,
a little bit.
a little bit. Yeah,
Right.
just for everybody.
Go to Free People Radio store and buy a coffee mug for your significant other.
Oh, she don't drink coffee. You drink coffee?
Do I drink
Do you
coffee?
drink coffee?
Oh, I drink a lot of coffee.
I'll buy you a mug.
Great. That'd
How
be
about
great.
that?
I don't have a mug. That'd be great. See, I sold a coffee mug. It was worth it. But when I look in that account and there's been some action, for example, Kathleen, who I was just referring to, she bought some hard goods from the store. Man, I really appreciate that because it helps us defray the cost of running this studio. And we're not making money yet. And when we start making money, what am I going to do with that money? Am I going to go buy myself a lake home and a boat? No. We're going to add more personalities, more producers. We're going to try to contribute to the deconstruction of the post-World War II Democrat liberal narrative and to enhance the growth and the rebirth of republicanism, which is what we're doing here on this podcast. And we're doing the same thing on Hebrews and Please Call Me Crazy. And we're going to make a transition over the next months. It's easy to be a critic. That's easy. This is wrong. That's wrong. Like an armchair quarterback. We have to propose changes in our society that actually are about the well-being of the American citizens. We have to propose political strategies that ensure the success of this project. The whole conservative media ecosystem is going to have to make a transition from being on the outs to being on the ins. And we have to be very good at that. That takes some real skill, some real evolution of our thinking. But when I say that we're going to propose changes to our society that enhance the well-being of the citizens, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Republicanism comes fully equipped with a ideological framework for providing for the well-being of every citizen. That's what republicanism is all about. And, the Democrat liberal order, really, I don't want to, it's not intended to be the opposite of republicanism. When it was, in my opinion, when it was formed in 1946, it was intended as an enhancement of republicanism. But of course, like any ideology that's evolving, it went off in a strange direction. I'm going to read this. Um, it was written, many, many years ago. Uh, and it was written during the time of the Cuban Missile Crisis. And I lived through that. And one of the most striking things I'm dealing with right now, I mean, and it is striking. I was alive. I remember when do you know anything about the Cuban Missile Crisis?
I've heard it so many times, but I don't know a single thing about it.
Why don't you remind me? We should look at it next week
Uh,
because this was a crisis that happened in 1963 when what happened? The Russians, they called it the Soviet Union at the time, which was rebranding. The Russian Empire created a missile delivery technology system in Cuba, which is very close to the coast of the United States, so that they could launch um, intercontinental ballistic missiles from Cuba with nuclear warheads that could hit the United States just minutes after they were launched. This was actually before the advent of submarine technology, which made such a position of missiles kind of irrelevant. But you know, this was war, and President Kennedy quarantined the island, blockaded the island, and forced Russian warships that were laden and were carrying cargoes that were going to build out this technology. He turned them back. Now, had the Russians not turned back, we would have had a world war. And in fact, the military hierarchy at that time, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, were urging the president to let loose a armed conflict, an armed invasion of Cuba as a response to the position of these missiles there. Now let's look at what's going on in the Ukraine. We've got tactical missiles. We've got strategic missiles. There's these ATACMS, which is our brand, and the British have this brand called the Storm Shadow. Great branding. The French, not quite as good. The Scalp missile. I don't like that Scalp.
you don't like that?
Nah.
I think that's pretty badass.
You like that
It's a little,
Scalp?
it's a little intimidating.
It is a little intimidating.
You can actually say you're going to get scalped again.
See, that's why you got to have different kinds of branding because there's different kinds of buyers.
Yeah.
Some people buy Buicks. Some people like Oldsmobiles, Anyhow, and then there's the pricing of the thing. But Khrushchev wrote during that crisis, if you did this, which he was talking about imposing this quarantine, this blockade of Cuba, if you did this as the first step towards the unleashing of war, well then, it is evident that nothing else is left to us but to accept this challenge of yours. If, however, you have not lost your self-control and sensibly conceive what this might lead to, then, Mr. President, we and you ought not now to pull on the ends of the rope in which you have tied the knot of war. Because the more the two of us pull, the tighter that knot will be tied. And a moment may come when that knot will be tied so tight that even he who tied it will not have the strength to untie it. And then it will be necessary to cut that knot. And what that would mean is not for me to explain to you, because you yourself, Mr. President, understand perfectly well of what terrible forces our countries dispose. Consequently, if there is no intention to tighten that knot and thereby to doom the world to the catastrophe of thermonuclear war, then let us not only relax the forces pulling on the ends of the rope, Let us take measures to untie that knot. We are ready for this. Thank God we had President Kennedy. What we have now is President Biden, who has yanked on that rope as hard as he can. Actually, I don't really think it's him. I think it's the people that he's, shilling for. And it's a horrible thing, what's going on. Still didn't sleep well. I was up. It was funny. Mrs. Professor Penn, who one time said to me, this is 2 years ago. She goes, what are you doing? Why are you doing all this politics? I said, these people are going to get us killed. We got kids. These people are insane. We are going to have to fight them or they're going to kill everybody. She said, how are they going to kill us? Well, there's going to be a war. And she said, war? What are you talking about? There's no bombs. There's no war here. I said, oh, yeah, there's war. There's war. And she said, you're crazy. She was up last night, couldn't sleep, asking me about what was going on. What happened last night was the Russians allegedly wasn't there. Can't verify it because all of this news we get is coming through the filter of somebody else's reportage. So we really don't know. We can only go with what we're told. And I say that very specifically because the rush to judgment in the absence of verifiable facts is extraordinarily dangerous. But the word around the campfire is that the Russians launched an intercontinental ballistic missile from eastern Russia that smoked a town in Ukraine, not with a nuclear weapon, but the payloads on these ICBMs, even when it's conventional weapons, it's like getting hit with a refrigerator full of high explosives. So it was quite an effective attack, allegedly. And I was listening on Morning Joe this morning, and they were interviewing a British reporter who was talking about it. He goes, I really don't understand why they would do that. Why would they use an ICBM? And I thought to myself, are you stupid? I mean, are you going to report this and be this stupid about it? Because, of course, if it's true, what they're saying is, hey, you can put nuclear weapons on the tips of these ATACMS and these Storm Shadows and these scalps. After you said that, I think that scalp is kind of a good brand.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You
It's
got to be on that.
intimidating.
See, Tanner's going to be at the next arms dealer convention in Vegas selling scalp missiles.
I think I could come up with some badass names for missiles.
That's fantastic. Maybe we should have a contest here at Free People Radio who can come up with the best weapons names. Anyhow, I digress. I thought, boy, man, you can't be this stupid because clearly what we're saying to the Russians is, we're not going to use nuclear weapons. Trust us. Trust us.
Trust us. We won't let the Ukrainians shoot our missiles into your land.
That was so yesterday.
Yeah.
So, hey, trust us. We will not move NATO 1 inch to the east. That was the 1991 alleged promise. So a lot of broken promises. We don't think of ourselves as Americans in our foreign policy being very disingenuous, but actually, Americans like lies. We like our politicians to, obviously we like our politicians to lie because look at who we elect. And all these leaders lie to each other, and that is anti-Republican. Republicanism, remember, is based, the philosophy of republicanism is anti-corruption. So when I say we don't have to go too far to redevelop a strategy, we don't have to make it up, it's already pre-baked. Hey, what's one of the 10 commandments? There's no lying. I mean, you can't have a healthy life if it's built on lies. And, I just, from a self-revelatory perspective, I look back on my life and I know what lies I've told. And, I've pretty much grown out of that now because I read a book, the autobiography of Mahatma Gandhi. I read it when I was 19 years old, and it's thick. It's 400 or 500 pages long. And I read it, and, it was so moving. And the fundamental theme of the book was spiritual development is based on honesty, on truthfulness. And that changed my life reading that book. And, lying is another addiction, like carbohydrates or, you know, fentanyl. It's an addiction. And I worked out of it and, that's good for me. And I'll tell you, when you get to my age also, you start to really become quite cognizant of your mortality. There's a move in Tai Chi, old monkey looks back. It's a martial move, and all these moves have dual meanings. There's a physical training, there's a martial application, and then there's a spiritual idea. And the idea of the move is, you look back at what you've done in your life. And I look back at my life, and we're going to talk about that tonight a little bit. Not about me specifically, but just what happens to people. And you start to look at what have I really done? Because I'm just like you. I mean, I'm not President Trump. I'm not a billionaire. I mean, even if I was a billionaire, is that really a marker of a successful life? And I'm confronted with all these people that, have all these demands on me. And I think that the most important thing that I've done in my life is discover the search for truth. Now, only I know that. And I have to remind myself how important that is. Because, of course, I would like to be, I'd like to have a 10 million person audience here. Of course I would. And I don't say that I will or I won't. That's not up to me. But is that really relevant? What's really relevant is I'm doing everything I can to bring back a balance. I don't want to abrogate the world of science. I'm not anti science. I want to see a balance. I want to see balance. I want to see harmony between the world of faith and the world of science. These scientists are out to destroy the world of faith. This entire Democrat liberal order is based on the scientific method, which is about the abrogation of faith. It perhaps didn't start out that way, but that's the way it became. The post World War II Democrat liberal order probably didn't start out to become a hegemonic, you know, awful program for the world, but that's what it became. So now we're in a fourth turning. For those of you who know what that means, we're not going to talk about it now. We don't have time. We're in a fourth turning. We're in a moment of great change. In fact, I was telling Tanner and sharing with Tanner just before we went on air. Um, this change that President Trump is about to bring forth, shall we be blessed with his inauguration? Please, dear God. Um, it's the greatest change in our culture since 1861 with the inauguration of Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln came in with the mandate and the mission to change the slave culture of our country, which was in opposition. Really, who was his enemy? Was the Democrats, because the Democrats were the people that owned slaves. The Republicans were the people of faith. The Republicans were the people of the North. They were the people who, because of religious sensibility, were about the abolition of slavery. He was elected. The South knew he was coming. And what did they do? They went to war because they knew he was going to change the country. And in a very similar way, these people, these Democrats, know that President Trump intends to change this country, not tinkering with it, radical paradigm shift. Like it's a radical paradigm shift to go from a slave economy to an industrial economy. That's a radical change. And President Lincoln did it at the expense of 10% of the U.S. population. And interestingly, the New York Times printed a big story just this week about the casualties associated with the Civil War. Unbelievable. And here we sit on the verge of another tremendous paradigm shift, the resurgence of the party of Lincoln, the party of human well being, the party of human freedom. And here we sit on the verge of nuclear war. I'm not saying these things are related. It's just the kind of thing that makes me go, hmm, hmm. The news that matters is that President Putin has reiterated his view about the U.S. supported use of long range missile strikes in Russia. As I've been saying, he has changed the Russian nuclear doctrine. You know, when they have a nuclear doctrine, okay, here's what a nuclear doctrine is: a bunch of PhDs in Russia, in China, in France, England, United States, Israel, Pakistan, and India, the avowed nuclear powers, you know, not counting all the people that probably have nukes in the basement. They just don't want to come up front with them. That'd be like Saudi, Iran, maybe some others. They spend time wargaming the various possible outcomes of engagement, and then they write down, hey, you do this, we're going to let these babies go. Because this is not the kind of thing you want to make up on the fly, because there's pressure, right? I mean, pressure. You know, when you're under pressure and you have all these fog of war inputs, you don't want to make a mistake. Plus, you want your opponents to know what you're going to do. It's a kind of I don't want to call it a bluff, it's a red line. And Putin has changed the nuclear doctrine of Russia to say that if a non nuclear power, that would be the Ukraine, attacks Russia with the aid of a nuclear power, that allows the Russian Federation to consider the use of nuclear weapons on that non nuclear power. So, what Putin is saying is, hey, you keep up this thing with these missiles, we're going to nuke Ukraine. Okay, that's where we're at. That might have something to do with why I'm not sleeping well.
I have a question though. It isn't the whole point to get his land back. So wouldn't nuking it be the worst option? Because then it's like I want my land back, but I'm just gonna destroy it.
Uh,
Because he just totally screw his whole land.
First of all, the radiation effects of nuclear weapons
Yeah.
vary by nuclear weapon employed. That's number one.
Mm.
Number two, if it's very clear to me, and I hope it's clear to my viewers and my listeners, the West has attacked Russia in 1805, 1812, 1853, 1917, 1942, 1947, and this Ukraine war. I mean, the Russians have $100 trillion of raw materials that are yet to be extracted from their territories. The Russians think, see, you're thinking about it from your street corner. From the Russian street corner, they think they're going to be conquered and robbed.
They think that the Russians are going,
the Russians
Ukrainians are going to come and take over
not
Russia?
the Ukrainians, the West,
Yeah.
the globalists.
Okay.
That'd be we the people. What the Russians are afraid of is being conquered and losing their sovereignty. You know, if Mexico runs across, well, Mexico is. I mean, the cartels, that's another thing. We're going to talk about it next week. I mean, the cartels, man, the infiltration of our society by the cartels is a military adventure. And President Trump plans on dealing with that too, which is another huge paradigm shift. But if all of a sudden we were invaded, or, you know, somebody put, you know, tactical, you know, missiles on our borders and we were invaded, like Mexico said, hey, we're going to take back Texas. Hey, you know what? We wouldn't be thinking about things the way we are. I was driving in this morning thinking about this on the highway. It was safe. The traffic was orderly. There was no gunfire. Nobody was pulling me over and trying to hijack me. I thought, man, with this huge war over there, things are still pretty safe in America. That's pretty badass. Because over in Russia, these missiles hit an area called Bryansk, which is a 5-hour drive from Moscow. So pick a 5-hour point on the map from Washington, D.C., and imagine somebody dropped a bunch of high explosives in there and blew it to smithereens. You think we'd go to war? You think you'd feel threatened? Would you feel threatened if you woke up tomorrow and Rochester took 6 attack of missiles and the Mayo Clinic disappeared? Would you feel threatened up here in Minneapolis?
I'd be scared.
Yeah, that's how they feel. And you have to go back into the history. This is the part we don't understand. When was the last time America was invaded, Tanner? Do you know?
We've never.
Yes, we have.
We have?
1812. The War of
1812.
1812. The
Who
British,
came and invaded us?
the British came
Oh,
back
okay.
and
Sorry,
they
I
burned
should've
the
known
White
that.
House down. Okay? We haven't been invaded in this country by a foreign power in over 200 years. Now, that means we feel quite safe. The Russians, again, 1805, invaded. 1812, Napoleon went all the way to Moscow and occupied it. 1853, the Crimean War, 500,000 Russians died defending Russia against the British in that war. 500,000. Wow. 1917, the entire country was occupied. And a huge war funded by the West when the communist regime, the Trotskyites and the Bolsheviks, tried to take control of Russia. There was a phenomenal war. 20 million Christians died in that war in 10 years. I mean, we're talking about mass genocides. 1942, Operation Barbarossa, the Germans attacked. They occupied all of Western Russia. The Russians lost tens of millions of people in that war. Tens of millions. You know, it's just crazy, right? So their frame of reference about what's going on here, we can't get that in our heads. We haven't been attacked in 200 years. They've been attacked constantly. Who is the aggressor? Who really is the aggressor? And then who profits from the war? I mean, that's another thing. Who are these people that are benefiting from this kind of a conflict? Well, I'm going to tell you who it is. It's companies like J.P. Morgan and BlackRock and McKinsey and Company who are now collaborating with the Ukrainian government to establish what? A reconstruction fund. You know, this BlackRock, some of you who have 401ks, for example, you may have your money with BlackRock. You may have your money with BlackRock. You go look up what you own if you have your money invested with BlackRock. You own every defense, not all of it. You own a share of it, a large piece of every American defense contractor is part of your portfolio at BlackRock. But the same thing will be at State Street or wherever you have your money invested. Now, and Mrs. Professor Penn hates this, I have never wanted to do this. I don't have a stock portfolio. I'm an entrepreneur. I don't want to earn my money. She looks at me and says, don't you want to have sleeping money? Sleeping money is you make money when you're asleep. No, I don't. I don't want to do that. I don't believe in it. Now, I am a weird dude. I get it. I'm not trying to give investment advice. I'm making a personal statement. I don't want to do that. I don't want to give my money over to a fund or an index fund and be in an index fund with all of the S&P, for example, and then my money is making money off all this carnage. I won't do it. Please go to tireget.com. That's how we make our money here at Free People Radio. We earn it by giving you a service. Tireget.com, 11 different brands. I'm getting as good as Alex Jones. That was good. That was so smooth. Hope you're getting a smile out of this. But no, just to continue, we have 11 different brands of tires. They're all at the right price. I do the customer service. You can meet me. And we'll put the tires right on in your backyard. It's fantastic. And here's an ad for TireGet. TireGet, TireGet.com. TireGet is here for the movement and for all the broadcasters and channels and stations that are presenting this content for you. TireGet is an online e-commerce platform where you can buy your tires. Now, everybody buys tires, or most of us buy tires. There's everything there that you need for your vehicles. All kinds of different brands, premium major brands, premium private label brands, every kind of tire. You go there, you pick your tire. We will ship the tires to the installer right by your house at no extra charge. You pay TireGet to have your tires installed. It's a one-stop shop for everything you need in tires and the best customer service in the tire business. So the next time you buy tires, think of TireGet. You got to buy your tires from someone. Please buy them from us. See, now this is how I earn my money. I don't want to make my money profiting off of death. I am opposed to it, and I want our society to be opposed to it. I want to have a consumer goods manufacturing society where we manufacture here in the United States, employ American citizens, and create the opportunity for one income families so that we can have quiet lives of contemplation and faith. We can't have lives of quiet contemplation and faith when our society is dedicated to the destruction of other peoples. That is anti-Christ. Anti-Christ. Wars of discretion are anti-Christ. When our government is funding, that's you and me, because we're the government of the people, by the people, for the people. When we allow our government and vote for our government to be involved in wars of discretion around the world and fund them with our tax dollars and our weapons, we're anti-Christ. We're anti-peace. We're anti the search for truth. We're playing a Darwinist game. It's the abrogation of faith. I'm opposed to it. And these people profit from it. I cannot tell you how far, in my opinion, our country is from being sustainable. I do want to talk just a little bit about Mexico because I have a business there. I have deep relationships there. I've been there many times. I have a really, really good friend there. His name's Alejandro, and I love him. He's my brother, and we've been in business together since 2008. And he's just a wonderful man, wonderful friend, a true friend. Someone that, he calls me amigo. And when they call you an amigo down in Mexico, there's two ways. Hey, amigo, and then they kill you. Or amigo, they mean it. It means something. It's like a family thing. I really care about him. I care about Mexico and I care about the Mexican people because they're good people. It's really a beautiful, warm culture. Not everything's good about any culture, but I've been there and I've been with these people in a way that most Americans never get to. They hug, they're warm, they laugh, they eat, they family with each other. They have a good value. They have things we don't have. And I know we in America look down on Mexico. Still to this day. Still to this day. What's happened in Mexico is awful. Um, the problems are deep rooted, go back hundreds of years. It was a colonized country, which has something to do with its maladies. Mexico is a post colonial political entity. It was colonized by the Spanish. It was colonized by many other countries that went down there to take a piece of the action, including the United States of America. The United States of America fought a war. Do you know that we fought a war with Mexico, Tanner? I bet you don't even know. 1848, it was a brutal war. States like Texas, Arizona, California, they were all part of Mexico. We took it from them. That would be called manifest destiny, the creation of the United States of America. We took those territories. And, those Mexican people, they remember that. They remember that. And they live in the shadow of the hegemon. The entire economic output of Mexico is less than that of just the state of Texas. So it is an economically much less powerful country. It's a country that has weakened institutions, weakened in some sense because the United States of America exploited the weakness of institutions there for our own economic benefit for decades. And then guess what happens? When you foster weak institutions to exploit something, hey, somebody could outflank you and exploit it for their own benefits. And that would be, for example, the drug cartels. And we got this thing in this country about drugs that is so far, first of all, I got to be careful how I say this because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings because I know people who have lost family members to fentanyl. But it's free will, and we're going to see that here in a clip here in a minute, I hope. Free will. I mean, it was someone's free will to take those drugs. And you say, well, it was spiked with fentanyl. Yeah, that's true. But, well-being would mean, less drugs and more health, right? But there are cartels down there, and we look at them as a foreign entity that's invading our country and not really looking at the phenomenal corruption. Because when people stop believing in God, the only thing they care about is money. Our entire country's system of governance in every state is corrupted at some level by the drug business. This drug business would not succeed, if there was no demand for drugs. If people didn't want to get high, there'd be no need for the supply. So we all like getting high and altering our consciousness, even if it's sitting down with a nice plate of warm, buttered sourdough bread. Yes, sourdough bread with butter on it alters your consciousness. You have to be very sensitive. I love coffee. Coffee's a drug. Coffee is a legal drug. It's a stimulant. When you drink coffee, can you feel its stimulant effects?
I've been addicted for probably 3 years. I don't feel much when I drink coffee.
Great.
It just makes
If
me feel normal.
if you stop drinking coffee, do you get a headache?
Yep.
That'd
Yeah.
be called withdrawal.
No, I know. I'm
Okay,
fully aware. Yeah.
great. So there you go. So, we have a deep love here in the United States of America of our drugs. That's not, we live in a drug culture. And those drugs on the illicit side. And then what does the government do? We, the people. We say, oh, there's some real good money in that marijuana business. We, the people, are going to take it out. And we push the drug dealers out and we become the drug dealers. That's going on right here in Minnesota right now. Right now in Minnesota, it's no longer medical marijuana. They've legalized marijuana. And the government is in the process of setting up the distribution of high potency, top grade marijuana for, everyday consumption.
I bet their stuff is mid. They say top quality BS. Their
Must
stuff
be
probably
must
isn't
be
good.
an expert. Must be an expert here in the studio. I don't know. Anyhow, Mexico is a big issue coming up here for this when I talk about a paradigm shift, because Mexico is our largest trading partner. And President Trump intends to bring an end or to curtail as much as he can this drug business that comes up out of Mexico. And the Chinese are involved in that. And he's not kidding around about this. We've let this go on, with a wink and a nod for a long time. Just a very, very ultra long time. I've got all this news. I'm going to go buy it. We're going to come back to it. Here's one I'm not going to go by just for fun. We talked a lot about it. The Pentagon failed its last audit, and $2 trillion of inventory was on the books, but it wasn't there to be counted. Well, they just finished the 7th audit, and they failed the 7th audit in a row. And Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin said in a statement, quote, "There are several areas where we need to work harder and achieve better results." And billions of dollars are disappearing. I'm going to read this again. There are several areas where we need to work harder and achieve better results. Critical improvements are needed in all areas, such as improving efficiency and property valuation, increasing accountability, and capturing all accounting system transactions. Listen to that one. Capturing all accounting system transactions. Wait a second. That sounds like theft to me.
Sorry, okay.
This is
Those
the
words go
Secretary.
right over my head.
I'm going to
Please
read it
explain
slowly.
that.
Probably went over everybody's head. This is what the Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, said in response to the 7th failed audit in a row. There are several areas where that'd be we the people. No, he's talking about the Department of Defense, but that's we the people. That's not them. That's all of us. They are there to serve us. They don't think so. They don't like these audits. It's called oversight. There are several areas where we need to work harder to achieve better results. Critical improvements are needed in areas such as improving efficiency In other words, waste. Like you and I are on the base and, hey, look at that. There's some televisions and boxes there, some monitors. Nobody's looking. Let's take them. Efficiency, right? Not very efficient. Property valuation. Property valuation is how you cover up holes in the inventory. There's a hole. Somebody robbed some stuff, right? The stuff that's left, you just increase the value of it, and that covers up the hole. Property valuation. Kind of, here's what they're saying. If we have weapons on the shelf, see, there's a thing.
So, okay, I just want to make this simple for myself. So if I had these two remotes sitting in front of me, and this is $100 and this is $100, I steal this. Now I'm out $100. I just raise this to $200.
Correct.
Okay.
See, it's great, isn't it? We have to improve our efficiency in our property valuation strategies, increase accountability. In other words, let's try to cut down on this robbing and this stealing. Capturing all accounting system transactions. That's a nice way of saying capturing all the thieves that are robbing the inventory. We're getting robbed, okay? These people that work there are stealing this stuff, and you know who they sell it to? Oh, I don't know, like the Mexican cartels. They're well armed. Oh, like Hamas and Hezbollah. Where do you think they're getting all their weapons? We're paying for it. Somebody's stealing it and selling it to our enemies. This is how crazy this whole system has become. When there's no God, no accountability, no integrity, no republicanism. It's because it's corrupt, right? The people are corrupt. What's in it for me? I'm going to rob and steal. Hey, there's no penalty for this. Hey, I'll tell you, I had a friend of mine. He used to say all the time, you're going to like this one. You were saying the other day, I got all kinds of sayings that you think are
little one-liners.
Here's a one-liner for you, but I'm going to attribute this to somebody else. It's only illegal if you get caught.
Yeah, I've heard that one before.
That is the philosophy of the Democrat liberal order.
Yeah.
The philosophy of republicanism is we know right and wrong, and we're not corrupt. You see the difference, what's happened to our country when we gave up the rut of what the framers had in mind for us? Capturing all account system transactions and modernizing the Pentagon's financial systems. See, when systems aren't modernized, it's easy to exploit their weaknesses. The whole system is set up like this. These people have $1 trillion a year on the books. You think they couldn't modernize their systems if they wanted to? They're intentionally not modern. It's called having a leaky boat. These people have submarines that can deliver enough ordnance to destroy the whole world. They can go underwater for a year, never come. Nuclear submarines, intercontinental ballistic missile technology. They got rifles that shoot around corners. They got stuff that are flying around in the skies. We think it's alien spacecraft. Now, that's our next generation of stuff that we don't know about yet. The skunk works, they call it. But they can't have a computer system that can keep track of the inventory. Do you think that might be on purpose? Because I have to consider, I don't know for sure, I have to consider it may be. And they're watching me say this. So I'm going to say to all the military people that tune in here because of Royce White, watch what I'm saying. Hey, you know what? We're not trying to put you out of business. We're just trying to put you out of the monkey business.
I mean, how many numbers a bank, just a single bank, goes through, and they do a pretty damn good job at keeping record of what's happening, where money's going, where it's moving, what accounts it's going to. How can the Pentagon not do that?
How can they not?
Yeah.
Very purposefully.
Yeah, it has to be purposely, because a single bank probably does just as, like...
You can't steal a nickel from a bank, can you?
Yeah, no.
Right.
That's wild.
Right. Oh, and let me tell you, for my company, hey, we have auditors come in my company from the outside. They call my inventory. It has to be accurate because the bank has what they call a security interest in my inventory. They don't want me stealing the inventory. I work for them. You know the Pentagon works for? They work for you, Tanner.
Yeah.
But they really don't care about you. In fact, to them, your inventory. See, this thing is all upside down. This is why Jesus went into the temple and turned over the tables of the money changers. Did he actually do that? Well, I don't know if he did it. I wasn't there. That's what it says. I mean, I'm not an eyewitness. But philosophically, the concept of turning this around, that we the people, we are the sovereigns. These people work for us, and they look at us as pond scum, and they're robbing us and using us as inventory. That's the regime coming to an end. Thank you, God, for getting President Trump inaugurated, because look at the geopolitical threats we're facing in the next 2 months. Could you please play number 2? Preventing World War III, President Trump.
We have never been closer to World War III than we are today under Joe Biden. A global conflict between nuclear-armed powers would mean death and destruction on a scale unmatched in human history. It would be nuclear Armageddon. Nothing is more important than avoiding that nightmare. We will avoid it, but we need new leadership. Every day this proxy battle in Ukraine continues, we risk global war. We must be absolutely clear that our objective is to immediately have a total cessation of hostilities. All shooting has to stop. This is the central issue. We need peace without delay. In addition, there must also be a complete commitment to dismantling the entire globalist neocon establishment that is perpetually dragging us into endless wars, pretending to fight for freedom and democracy abroad, while they turn us into a third world country and a third world dictatorship right here at home. The State Department, the defense bureaucracy, the intelligence services, and all of the rest need to be completely overhauled and reconstituted to fire the deep staters and put America first. We have to put America first. Finally, we have to finish the process we began under my administration of fundamentally reevaluating NATO's purpose and NATO's mission. Our foreign policy establishment keeps trying to pull the world into conflict with a nuclear-armed Russia based on the lie that Russia represents our greatest threat. But the greatest threat to Western civilization today is not Russia. It's probably, more than anything else, ourselves and some of the horrible USA-hating people that represent us. It's the abolition of our national borders. It's the failure to police our own cities. It's the destruction of the rule of law from within. It's the collapse of the nuclear family and fertility rates like nobody can believe is happening. It's the Marxists who would have us become a godless nation worshiping at the altar of race and gender and environment. And it's the globalist class that has made us totally dependent on China and other foreign countries that basically hate us. These globalists want to squander all of America's strength, blood, and treasure, chasing monsters and phantoms overseas while keeping us distracted from the havoc they're creating right here at home. These forces are doing more damage to America than Russia and China could ever have dreamed. Evicting this sick and corrupt establishment is the monumental task for the next president. And I am the only one who can do it. I'm the only one that can get the job done. I know exactly what has to be done.
Well, I'm going to say that President Trump, his evolution since 2015, the evolution of all of us since 2015, those of us who have decided to wake up, is staggering. That kind of rhetoric would be incomprehensible just 10 years ago. President Trump has been maligned, has been vilified, has been labeled by the forces that he identifies as the enemy in an attempt to prevent the following. Number 3, please.
If the Democrats fail it might be the end of American bureaucracy.
Our bureaucracy really is in fundamental peril.
The foundations of American bureaucracy under attack.
They want to destroy our bureaucracy.
We are a bureaucracy in danger.
We're watching an election where people are on the ballot openly advocating the end of bureaucracy.
That's what Republicans are doing, attacking bureaucracy, attempting to destroy bureaucracy, and they're doing it with glee.
This is the end of bureaucracy in America.
When will America stop sleepwalking towards the end of bureaucracy?
Right. It's Democrats versus, as Bill Kristol says, the end of bureaucracy.
We are essentially, as Neil put it, one vote away from sort of the end of bureaucracy as we know it.
I think our bureaucracy and the stability of that bureaucracy is really the thing on the ballot and really so important.
So when President Trump says he knows exactly what to do, he does. And so all these talking heads are blowing off because he's coming for the administrative state. And that is the biggest paradigm shift since President Lincoln established it. So there is two ends here. When President Lincoln fought that war and he died as a result of it, he was assassinated. Interesting, isn't it? And the South was conquered really by the North. The Confederacy fell, but the culture of the Confederacy did not fall. The racism of the Confederacy did not end. The discrimination of the Confederacy continued. So the government of the United States, the federal government, established a bureaucracy to regulate the southern states and prevent them, to limit them from their continued exploitation of the former slaves. The administrative state was established to guarantee the success of the anti-slavery project of Republicans. And as I've said, using the yin-yang theory, that one thing turns into its opposite. If you look at that symbol with the white on one side with the little black dot and the black on one side with the little white dot, what that means is things are always changing and one thing will transform into its opposite. So that very administrative state that was established to guarantee the well-being of every American citizen and to fulfill the promise of the Constitution of the United States has turned into and has been occupied by the very evil it sought to minimize. President Trump sees it, I see it, and all these talking heads see it. And can you imagine any group of, those are all very powerful and learned and popular people. They're actually, do you have some love for a bureaucrat or bureaucracy? I mean, that's kind of staggering, right? When you say bureaucracy, when I say, hey, the bureaucracy, do you have like overwhelmingly positive feelings about the word bureaucracy?
It's a little embarrassing, but I had to search up the definition because I've slowly forgotten what it was. I'm not excited about it.
What does it say? Is it still up?
It's a system of government in which most of the important decisions are made by state officials rather than by elected representatives.
Oh, there you go.
I think the only way that that works is in a family household. That is the only way that that shape works.
That's an interesting comment.
That's the only way I can see it. In a family household, the bureaucracy is the only way it would work because humans are greedy. Like, I understand on paper this sounds great. Like, if only I could have somebody that actually cared about me that much and knew how to do the job.
Oh, I see. Very good. That's a very good point, Tanner.
But in government, like, yeah, human history, we've seen that that's not how that works.
Wasn't it? Read that definition one more time. It's very helpful. Thank you. Please, one more time.
A system of government in which most of the important decisions are made by state officials rather than by elected representatives.
And what is our system of governance? It's self-governance. We elect representatives who do our will. But what we found out is, read that definition one more time, please, sir.
A system of government in which most of the important decisions are made by state officials rather than by elected representatives.
Great. And that's what we call the deep state, the bureaucracy. And look at those Democrats go crazy because they know that President Trump is coming with a metaphorical meat cleaver to end the Democrat control of our country as they use the deep state, the bureaucracy, to achieve their goals and their ends, which, of course, is not my goal and my end. I want to self-govern. I don't want to be governed by unelected technocrats. And who are those technocrats? Who are they? Who are they? Who runs that bureaucratic deep state of unelected officials? Who are they? Well, let me tell you who they are. They're the lawyers. Now, there's millions of government employees, but the ones that really got the juice amongst those unelected officials are the lawyers. The lawyers. They are in charge. It's the rule of law, administrative procedure, rule of law. And the leftists know this. They've been screaming for 2 years that the court's unfair, that President Trump packed the court with conservative justices. And who are these lawyers, these conservative justices? They believe in republicanism. Ooh, that's very dangerous to the deep state. They believe they're just sitting there, the Supreme Court, waiting for cases to limit the deep state. They had, for example, a decision called the Chevron decision last year, where they're starting to limit the power of these unelected officials. Oh, very scary. So what did the left do? We need to pack the court. We need to make the court fair. We need to add more justices to the Supreme Court. And I'm going to tell you what, I agree with them. Let's please play number 4.
With Democrats controlling 2 branches of government, some progressives think it's time to reshape the third. Changing the composition of the court may sound radical, but it's actually already been done.
Over the years, the first Supreme Court had 6 justices. It's changed back and forth over the times. It's changed 6 different times, but there have been only 9 justices since 1869.
In other words, the number isn't set in stone. Court size wasn't explicitly outlined in the Constitution because, you guessed it, the framers wanted to give Congress flexibility. The first change came in 1801, when President John Adams signed the Judiciary Act, which reduced the court down to 5. Adams was trying to limit incoming President Thomas Jefferson's future appointments. And if that sounds familiar, it's because lawmakers will try to curb the power of future presidents for decades to come.
The American people may well elect a president who decides to nominate Judge Garland for Senate consideration. The next president may also nominate somebody very different.
Alas, Jefferson and the Republicans repealed the Judiciary Act, restoring the court to 6 in 1802. That number continued to tick up, reaching its peak of 10 justices in 1863. That only lasted 3 years before going back down to 9, and remaining that way ever since. The concept of court packing, though, kept on kicking.
But we cannot yield our constitutional destiny to the personal judgment of a few men who, being fearful of the future, would deny us the necessary means of dealing with the present.
In the 30s, President Franklin D. Roosevelt was frustrated that parts of his New Deal were being knocked down by the Supreme Court. So, he came up with a plan that would allow him to add 1 new justice for every sitting justice older than 70.
He wanted to be able to appoint justices in sufficient numbers to counter the decisions of these so-called 4 horsemen.
The 4 horsemen were the conservative justices who frequently struck down his legislation.
I think Roosevelt was surprised, but there was a lot of pushback to this recommendation from his party and from others. They saw it what it was, which is basically a tinkering with the size of the court for partisan ends, and the bill was not enacted.
That once radical FDR-era idea is now under serious consideration by some Democrats.
The conversation that we're having now, which is pushed mostly by liberal activists who are unhappy with the present Supreme Court, is really the most stark example of activists and members of Congress being serious about this idea of adding more seats.
President Biden isn't a fan of expanding the High Court, but did create a bipartisan commission to study possible structural changes. President Trump reshaped the court with the confirmation of 3 conservative justices during his term, thanks in part to political maneuvering from a Republican majority. Their ideologies are a driving force for Democrats pushing for change, but the timing of these appointments also caused controversy for both parties.
When Justice Antonin Scalia died, with 10 months before the election, the Republican Senate refused to consider President Obama's nomination of Merrick Garland to fill that seat. And then there was a second example when Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg died in September, right before the election. Her dying wish was that the next president be allowed to name her successor. Instead, President Trump nominated Amy Coney Barrett, and the Republican Senate rushed to confirm her before the election, even as voters were casting their ballots for the next president.
Democrats argued that adding seats could balance out one of the most conservative-leaning courts in history.
The counter-argument is, once we go down that road, the court will become a political football, and its size will be adjusted one way or the other as different majorities take control of the Congress.
So, should we expect any changes to the Supreme Court during the Biden administration?
People are unhappy with the Supreme Court, or some people are, but not to the point that you have a broad popular majority that can induce Congress to make a major change like increasing its size or imposing term limits. I just don't see that happening.
Well, a lot of things are getting ready to change. And I would consider it to be very appropriate if President Trump and his legislative majority decided to expand the court from 9 to, say, 13. And he not only replaced all the Supreme Court judges that come up during his next term, which there could be several, and then stick 4 more on there and give the Democrats what they asked for. They wanted to expand the court. You know, Tai Chi is always about giving people what they asked for. That's what Tai Chi is. I take your energy and I give it back to you. I'd like to see us do that to the Democrats. When I say us, I mean the Republicans, because these people have been trying to pervert the system. And I like to give them their perversion right back on a silver platter. And these lawyers, these lawyers. Well, these lawyers are at the heart of everything because Republicans that framed this country were deeply suspicious of the priests who had served in harmony with the monarchs of Europe to suppress the people in this hereditary dictatorship we call kings and queens. They didn't trust them priests, so they separated them out of the deal. They thought they had a new group of folks, the lawyers, who would be more ethical, more reasonable, and more grounded in the ever-expanding edifice of science and logic, which had been growing up since what we call the Enlightenment. They thought these lawyers, because they were Christians, they believed in God, they searched for truth, and their entire lives were based on the search for truth, but they had grafted on a legal education. So they, the framers, believed that the lawyers should take the role of intermediating between the government and the people to keep things moving down the center of the road. But look what happened to these people. Can you please play number 5?
You were right about one thing, Kevin. I have been watching. Couldn't help myself watching. Waiting. Holding my breath. But I'm no puppeteer, Kevin. I don't make things happen. Doesn't work like that.
What did you do to Marianne?
Free will. It's like butterfly wings. Once touched, they never get off the ground. No, I only set the stage. You pull your own strings.
What did you do to Marianne?
A gun? In here?
God damn it! What did you do to my wife?
Well,
On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most depraved act of sexual theater known to man, 1 being your average Friday night run-through at the Lomax's household, I'd say, not to be immodest, Marianne and I got it on at about 7. Fuck you! Oh, got me! Got me! Yes! Wow! Oh, yeah! Yeah! Step on up, son! Come on, that's good! You gotta hold on to that fury! Yeah, that's the last thing to go. That's the final hiding place. It's the final fig leaf.
Who are you?
Who am I? Who are you? Never lost a case. Why? Why do you think? Because you're so fucking good. Yeah? But why?
Because you're my father.
I'm a little more than that, Kevin. Awfully hot in that courtroom, wasn't it? What's the game plan, Kevin? Was a nice run, Kev. Had to close out someday. Nobody wins them all.
What are you?
Oh, I have so many names.
Say.
Call me Dad.
Marianne, she knew it. She knew it. She knew it, so you destroyed her.
You blaming me for Marianne? Oh, I hope you're kidding. Marianne, you could have saved her anytime you like. All she wanted was love. Hey, you were too busy.
That's a lie.
Marianne in New York? Face it, you started looking to better deal her the minute you got here.
That's not true. You don't know what we had. You don't know anything about it.
Hey, I'm on your side.
You're a liar!
No, hey, Kevin, there's nothing out there for you. Don't be such a fucking chump. Stop deluding yourself. I told you to take care of your wife. What did I say? The world would understand. Didn't I say that? What did you do?
You know what scares me, John? I leave the case, she gets better, and then I hate her for it.
Remember?
I know what you did. You set me up.
Who told you to pull out all the stops on Mr. Geddes? Who made that choice?
It's entrapment. You set me up.
And more yet, the direction you took. Popes, swamis, snake handlers, all feeding at the same trough. Whose ideas were those?
You played me! It was a test, your test!
And Colin, knowing he was guilty, seeing those pictures, what did you do? You put that lying bitch on the stand.
You brought me in. You put me there. You made her lie.
I don't do that, Kevin. That day on the subway, what did I say to you? What were my words to you? Maybe it was your time to lose. You didn't think so.
Lose? I don't lose. I win. I win. I'm a lawyer. That's my job. That's what I do.
I rest my case.
And there you have the weakness in rule of law. I'm a lawyer. I win. That's what I do. That's quite Darwinian, wouldn't you agree? You know, when the lawyers got swept up in the post-World War II Democrat liberal order, when our higher institutions of learning stopped searching for truth and started telling people that they knew all the answers, when the moral and ethical compass of the people was perverted, when the people were told they could do whatever they wanted to do, that they were free, not to discover what I need to do, what I ought to do, but I can do anything I want to do, and I've made those mistakes in my own life. When the lawyers have this winning mentality, this Darwinian mentality, this adversarial system, we get into the kind of perverse politics and administrative state and bureaucracy and deep state that President Trump has come to liberate the people from, because it's the lawyers that are the checks and balances on the system, and they have failed us, but not all of them. I'm a businessman. I have a wonderful relationship with an attorney. My mother, who is the original gangster of liberals, she was an attorney. She was an ethical attorney. There are attorneys that are supremely ethical, that have held on to the idea of ethics in the law. And there are places in the law where you see it happen every day. Like, for example, insurance claims. There are cases that come before the court where people are maimed and killed. And there's lawsuits to recover money in exchange for death and dismemberment. Right off the bat, can money replace the loss of a loved one from a car accident? No. But it can help the remaining struggle along with their suffering. And sometimes cases come before the court where people have been maimed and dismembered and killed, and it was their fault, but they still had to sue somebody. And these attorneys get together, these insurance attorneys, and they have a way of sitting down, and I've seen it and participated in it. They have a way of sitting down and negotiating settlements where people are taken care of. There are attorneys that are really there to care for the people. That's their job. Like a doctor, our professionals, our priests, our doctors, our lawyers, our architects. They profess to have special knowledge to serve the people. We give them status and roles in our society because they've invested in acquiring knowledge that they then are to use for the benefit of the people. Of course, what they do is they use it for the benefit of themselves. And once they've done that, we become inventory, and they become rich and powerful. They want to win, just as Keanu Reeves was alluding to in that clip from The Devil's Advocate, which I hope we get up because, some of these clips, they say yes today and no tomorrow because Professor Penn is on somebody's radar. But the point is, the refreshing of our society in this fourth turning has to impact the skilled positions. Lawyers, doctors, priests, architects. This is where we have to focus our interest and our intent as we the people. And I'm going to ask you a question. The last time you went to vote, when you went to vote, did you notice all those judges that were on the ballot?
Yeah.
Did you know anything about that?
No.
Not a thing, right?
Yeah.
See, the action's in the law. They got us focused over here in this elective political game, which is a diversion. The action's in the law. We have so much work to do to save our country from depravity. But the simplest way to do it is to work on our institutions of higher learning and restore republicanism in those communist institutions. And President Trump has a plan for that too. 51 agenda items getting ready to come down the pipe on the 20th of January. The greatest change to our culture since 1861. It's very exciting.
Sorry to stop you. You said January 20th?
Yes.
You want to know what is so weird is this, it feels so profound to me because dates in my life are lining up with all these. So election day was my daughter's birthday.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the biggest election I'll see in my life. I hope this is I hope it doesn't get crazier. And now January 20th is my mom's birthday. So I'm both really close family members' birthdays are both really important days for this. That's crazy.
You know what I say to you as a young friend? Human beings are meaning-making machines. We see patterns when there aren't any. Yeah. We assign value when there isn't any. That's just what it is to have a brain.
Dude, you're a party pooper. You're just pooping on my party right now.
I'm just being frank about it. Now, I can't let this podcast in without a critique of the largest, most profitable section of the bar. That would be family law. Could you please play number 7?
What does she want?
Child support.
I've always taken care of my kids.
And they'll be 18 in 1 year, which makes it nice for you.
What about alimony?
Barbara, against my advice, waives alimony.
I'm making money with my business, getting a lot of referrals. I can support myself.
Well, I'm a lucky guy.
My client is being more than fair, Mr. Rose. She's waived alimony, and she's willing to waive her rights against your law practice in exchange for the house and all of its contents except your shaving gear and his clothing.
Everything I made went into that house.
I found that house. Every piece of furniture is where it is because I decided to put it there. That is my house.
If your client has finished yammering, you should explain to her that a wife does not automatically get the house.
I thought you told her that she was entitled to anything and everything.
I told her what?
Yes. Here it is. I quote, "My love, by the time you..." Boy, what a handwriting. By the time you receive this, I may be gone. Blah, blah, blah. All I am and all I have, I owe to you. You wrote this, Mr. Rose?
Excuse me, Mr. Thurmont, you tiny little worm-like infinitesimal prick. Could I have a word with my wife, please?
Certainly.
This is a who can sink lowest, fastest contest. You won. By showing him my letter, you have sunk below the deepest layer of prehistoric frog shit at the bottom of a New Jersey scum swamp. I may have let you have the house, but now you'll never get it. You will never get that house. Do you understand? You will never get that house.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
Maybe I shouldn't have let you see that letter.
Oh, dear girl. By the time this is all over, you'll think of today as one of your lighter moments.
If you're out there and you've been divorced, you know what I'm about to say. I've been divorced. The hatred between these two characters in the iconic movie The War of the Roses, Michael Douglas, filled with rage at the dissolution of his marriage. In a lawyer's office, the hatred for his wife is palpable. It's the War of the Roses. And what do? We turn these people over to divorce attorneys. And what do these divorce attorneys do? They're just like that attorney. They want to win. They want to win. So they take people who are at the worst time of their lives. Their families are dissolving. Everything they worked for is falling away. They're miserable. Oftentimes they're psychotic. Because we all know, we read in the paper pretty regularly, guy lost it, killed the wife and 4 kids. So we know people in this spot lose it. And what do these lawyers do? They set up an adversarial system where the two lawyers on the two sides fight over everything. They're going to fight down to who gets the plant in the kitchen. Kids, psychological evaluations, social workers. Hundreds of thousands of dollars going into this. This is the system that we have that's become perverted by this Darwinian who's the baddest concept. So, who's the baddest? That could be 2 guys in the ring. It could be 2 lawyers in a courtroom. This is the most profitable and the largest part of the bar. Taking 2 sufferers and their children and pitting them against each other in unending legal drama. It is wrong. This is how we refresh our society. There are actually countries in this world where there's no divorce of lawyers. Doesn't exist. You get divorced, hey, here's how you do it. It's written down. You know, if there's abuse, okay, that's a different story. I'm talking about child abuse. Other than that, hey, you guys abused each other, great, separate. Take care of your kids, split the assets, get out of here. Go live a new life. But what we have in our society is an unending series of motions and counter motions and court appearances. Now, I've never been through this, okay? My divorce settled out of court. Why? I gave in. It wasn't worth it for me to fight an ex-wife. Not worth it. First of all, what kind of fight is that? That's not a real fight. That's giving myself over to a fake fight. I don't believe in fake fights. I believe in the path of peace. But the system that we're talking about, this administrative state, this bureaucracy, this deep state, which emanates out of our universities and our law schools, its impacts are pervasive into every element of our lives. How are we going to change this? Well, watching podcasts is a small part of it. We've got to get involved. We are not going to save this country from its depravity by being spectators. We have a chance to set this country anew. We have 4 years to do it. So please, find a way to get involved. As I was saying with Tanner, you have elections for judges when you went to vote for this last presidential election, did you have judges on the ballot? And did you know the name of a single judge? Did you know who to vote for? Of course not, because nobody's paying attention to the heart of the matter. President Trump's going to get them from the top. He's going to cleave that state. He's going to reduce it. He's going to get rid of a lot of these people. And where are they going to go? Back into your neighborhood to exploit your family. We have to get involved in a full spectrum kind of a way. It's a once in a century chance to participate, every one of us, in the redemption of the United States of America. And if this country is redeemed, so shall I be. On that note, I'd like to end with something happy. You know, Kim got me going on the Eagles. And, man, Joe Walsh was a guitar player, played with the Eagles. He's still alive. This guy was a badass. And Joe Walsh was a legendary drug addict. But, man, this guy could play. And he's got some of the most iconic rock and roll riffs in the history of rock and roll. So on this Thursday night, I want to go out with Joe Walsh. I want to wish you a great weekend. I wish you well. I pray, God, thank you for getting us to next Tuesday so this community can get back together. I want to thank all of you for supporting Free People Radio and Target. I want to wish you health and well-being. And I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday night. Tanner, take us on out.
Have a good night, everybody.